It's time for a little chat about all the things that I made in July. Hi, my name is Sarah and my channel is knottygnome Crafts. Welcome. My channel is all about sewing and styling a handmade wardrobe. If you're a first-time viewer, thank you so much for checking out my channel. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. Today I have a lot of things to share with you, and I have to start off with a little bit of an apology. This is not something I'm going to make a habit of, but I just was not able to film video clips of all of my makes this month. But I will be inserting pictures, and I'm going to try to give you the basic details of each make. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to leave them in the comments and I will answer you. I will be linking all of the patterns that I used in the description box below. So let's just get started. So starting off with tops, I made two versions of the Helen's Closet Reynolds top in the month of July. This one was my wearable muslin, and then this was the final version. Both of them are a rayon fabric. This one I believe was a rayon challis, or maybe a rayon voile, and then this one was a rayon lawn. Both of these are a size 2, but I did make a few adjustments from the first one to the second. So the first time around, I shortened the straps a little bit too much, so I went ahead and lengthened them in my final version. I did end up moving the bust dart up a little bit, but the primary difference between the two is that on my first version, I just serged my seams and sewed them like I normally would, but on this final version out of the Rifle Paper Company fabric, I did flat-filled seams on the entire thing mainly because I still had my old serger and I didn't want to change out the thread. So I just did all of the finishing where all the seams are enclosed so you don't see them. And I do think that it makes a really nice clean finish. I'm happy with both tops. I think that they're both wearable and super cute, and I really do like the square neck style with the wider straps. The second top I want to share with you is a hand knit sweater. So I made this using the Knitter's Handy Book of Patterns, and I just kind of cobbled together the design on my own. It has a simple like pullover shell style. It's a little bit cropped, and it does have back dart shaping. You probably won't be able to see that. I used size 2 needles, and the yarns that I used were Madeline Tosh Twist Sock and Miss Babs. I had a mini skein set in all these different colors, and I thought it would be really fun to have a stripy tank top. And I'm actually working on a matching cardigan right now where the stripe sequence is a little bit different, but the two pieces will coordinate. My next 4 makes were all the Victory Patterns Frances. So I had bought this pattern fairly recently, even though it's not a new release, because I had been looking for a more fitted t-shirt pattern that had a lot of options. I found that I've been gravitating more towards silhouettes that look better with a more fitted style, so like a more fitted top with looser bottoms, or something that I could layer under pinafore dresses or overalls, things like that. So I wanted to add another t-shirt pattern to my collection that was a little bit more close fitting. So I decided to buy the Victory Patterns Frances, and then I ended up making 4 versions in July. So I did have to play around a little bit with the sizing and adjustments, so these are not all the same size, but ultimately the size that I decided worked best for me was the size 0. And the different versions that I made, this one was out of a leftover piece of bamboo jersey that I got from fabric.com, and I made a Mandy boat tee out of this, and this was just the leftovers. This is the cropped version, and it has the low scoop back, and I really like this particular feature with the tie in the back because I think it's just a nice little detail. I do think that this cropped version is a little bit more cropped than I would prefer. If I were going to make that version again, I would definitely lengthen the top probably 1.5 to 2 inches, just so it sits a little bit more on the waistband of my pants or skirt or whatever I'm wearing with it. This really comes right at my natural waist. And it makes sense that it does that because the pattern also comes as a dress. So this is basically the bodice of the dress, and then you would add the skirt. So it makes sense for that application, but for a crop top, it's just a little bit shorter than I would want it. But otherwise, I really like that particular version. This one I haven't actually worn yet. This is a cotton spandex jersey. It's a Robert Kaufman fabric I got from fabric.com. I made this version, I think because it's orange, I was thinking that it would be great for fall, so I did the mock neck with the elbow length sleeves. And I haven't worn this yet because it's just been too warm to wear a mock turtleneck right now. I was working on the fitting with this one, so it doesn't fit quite right. It's a little bit tight under the arms. So it's not the most comfortable, but it is still wearable. I do think that I'll get more wear out of it as fall approaches. So I do like this one, but it's probably my least favorite out of all the ones that I've made this month. This one was another remnant piece. I had made a Friday Pattern Company Adrian blouse out of this. This is a cotton jersey, there's no spandex, from Metro Textiles, and I did not like that Adrian blouse, so I was happy to be able to get something else out of this fabric because I really, really like this color. This is another that has the scoop neck in the front and it has the medium scoop back, so you don't need the tie. This was the first version that I made, and I think I made a larger size initially, and I did find it to be a bit big. So I did have to go back in and kind of take it in at the sides, make it a little bit more fitted to the body, and it is a little bit too wide at my shoulders, but I really, really like how this looks with the cap sleeve and the neckline. I've already worn this one quite a bit actually, and I definitely will be making more of this particular style in the future. And then the last one I have to share is a cream colored cotton modal spandex jersey. It was another leftover piece that I had from another top that I had made. And this one has the same neckline as the red one, so the scoop in the front and the mid scoop in the back, and then I put on the elbow length sleeves. I do think this is a wonderful basic white tee. I do have another white t-shirt, but it's more of a boxy fit, and this one's much more fitted, so I do think that it'll go with many, many things in my wardrobe, and I'm looking forward to wearing this for years to come. So the next thing I have to share with you is the bathing suit. So in my July plans, I had originally wanted to make a white bikini, but I decided in the end to use up some other fabric that I had purchased from the Fabric Fairy. And basically I just wanted to kind of simplify and make a pattern that was less complicated. So that's why I chose this one over the white one. So the top is the Friday Pattern Company Vernaza two-piece. And I had made this top once before and it did not fit. So I had some issues with the seam allowance not being accurate. For me, I couldn't make the seam allowance accurate. So this time around, I reprinted the size small, which is a larger size than I made the last time. And then I also, before I cut it out, I trimmed the seam allowances down from 5/8 of an inch to 3/8 of an inch. And then I made this bikini top. Now the problem is that now that I've done this, cutting these seam allowances down to 3/8 of an inch made it much, much easier to sew. So I'm really happy that I did that. However, now that my seam allowances are more accurate, this size small is actually a little bit too big. The extra small would have fit me originally if I had just trimmed the seam allowances down. So although this is still wearable, it is a little bit on the large side. I wish that I had made the extra small, but it's still perfectly fine. So this fabric is a really interesting and fun design, and I didn't exactly pattern match, but I tried to keep the patterns like consistent, and I think I did a pretty decent job. I like the tie front. It is fully lined with like an Echo swimsuit lining that I also got from the Fabric Fairy, and I did add foam cups. And so in the instructions they tell you that if your swimsuit's small enough that you can just pop the cups in and you don't have to like stitch them down. So I did that, but I really wish that I had tacked them down, because when I wash this bathing suit, the cups want to like crinkle up on the inside, and then you got to like kind of work them to get them to flatten out. So that part's kind of annoying. The other thing that I almost forgot to tell you is that so the back part is lined with swimsuit lining, but the front part I did in a self fabric because of these ties. Because the ties are double-sided, you would see the lining if I used a lining fabric. So I did go ahead and make the fronts out of the fashion fabric so that the tie looks nice and neat. Now for the bottoms, I opted for a different pattern because although I really like the Vernaza two-piece bottoms, I like it better than the top actually, but I wanted something that was a little bit less coverage, so I decided to try out the Edgewater Avenue Ranger bottoms, and it's a very, very simple pattern. This was the size small with the full coverage back. I think there's also like a cheeky coverage and a thong coverage, but I went for the full coverage. Again, I didn't pattern match, but I tried to like keep the patterns consistent throughout the bottoms. And this is also lined. So the instructions for this one are kind of weird. I don't know if maybe I just missed something. That's possible, because it's one of those patterns that has like short illustrated instructions, but there's also like a whole video tutorial, and I didn't watch the video. But technically these bottoms are meant to be reversible, and I didn't make them reversible, I just did a regular lining. But as far as I can tell, there's nowhere in the pattern that tells you to use elastic. So I have no idea how that's supposed to work, to make like bikini bottoms with no elastic in them. So I put elastic in. I just used the same method that I used for the Sandpiper swimsuit when I made that one. And I will say that like having the elastic in like pinches me a little bit. Like it's not uncomfortable, but maybe it doesn't look as attractive because it does kind of create love handles or like emphasizes them a little bit more. But on the other hand, I would much rather have that than have my bikini bottoms fall off when I'm in the water. So I don't get the whole no elastic thing. Again, maybe I just missed it in the instructions, but I do think that that was really, really odd. I don't love this particular style of bottoms. They're okay, but I think that next time I make a swimsuit, I'll probably branch out and try some different patterns. Actually, for both of these, like, I feel like I'm not unhappy with this and I'm glad that I made it, but it's not necessarily either pattern that I want to reach for again. So after sewing a new bikini, I really wanted to sew some cover-ups. So the last time that my husband and I went to the beach, we were actually just walking along and like, people watching, and he pointed out this lady who had on like a caftan style cover-up, and he just said, you would look really good in that. And up to that point, I had not really thought too much about what kind of cover-up would be best for me. I'd just been wearing like shorts and a t-shirt, but I quickly found out that actually that's not great as a cover-up for me because you get sand in your shorts and that's not very comfortable. So I was thinking that maybe I should make myself some type of dress that I could throw on over my swimsuit and it'd be more comfortable and it would dry quickly, etc. So I was looking into some different cover-up patterns. So I settled upon the Made for Mermaids Marisol cover-up. There are a lot of options with this pattern. I made the size pink and I did the shortest length. And the fabric that I used was sponsored to me by Morex Fabrics. So I received this fabric for free in exchange for a review on my YouTube channel, which I will link down in the description box below. I did not receive any monetary compensation. I just got the fabric for free. So I made this up into a cover-up. Now here's the part where I'm going to be brutally honest with you guys. I did not like this pattern. In my opinion, the drafting wasn't great. One of the things was on this back facing piece, it's a piece that's cut on the fold, and so when I cut it out on the fold, it actually had not been trued up to the point where like the point up here was actually like there was kind of a peak, like they hadn't leveled it out like this so that it's like nice and straight across the fold. And that's kind of like a rookie mistake that I would make. So I found that a little bit dodgy. There is a front facing here, but in my opinion, the front facing is too narrow. I mean, maybe that's sort of a preference thing, but I had a little bit of a hard time with the front facing. The instructions for when you're stitching up the sides here, there is an elastic in the waist here on the front and the back. You can also do a drawstring channel if you prefer, but I did elastic. And then you stitch down a little bit along this caftan side to like close that up. But they don't actually tell you to finish the insides of when you stitch it together. So technically like these little pieces here are just supposed to be raw and you trim them. And I just thought that that was not a very good finish. Ultimately, I mean, I got a usable cover-up garment out of it, but I just wasn't really thrilled with the pattern, and it's not one that I want to make again. Additionally, and this is totally not the fault of the pattern, I just am not in love with this style on me. It's okay, but I think what I decided was that ultimately what I want out of a swim cover-up is something that's like a dress that I can throw on over my bathing suit, but also when we're going home for the day, if we stop for lunch, that I could still wear this and have it look more like a dress. This is way too short to be anything but a swimsuit cover-up. Maybe I could wear it as like a tunic top or something, but I probably wouldn't because I don't like it enough. But yeah, I just decided that this style is not really for me. So after I made that one, I was still seeking a cover-up that I would like a little bit better, and I was kind of looking through some different patterns, and I really liked the look of the True Bias Roscoe dress, but I don't own that pattern. I have several similar peasant style blouses already in my stash, so I decided to hack a pattern that I already own, and it's from the So Beautiful book, which is written by the owner of Itch to Stitch, and it's the Palermo top and dress. So I'd made the top before, so I just used the same top pattern that I used the first time around, but I added a little gathered ruffle at the bottom here to make it a drop waist dress, and I also shortened the sleeves a little bit to make them 3/4 length. This fabric is another one that was sponsored by Morex. It's their crinkle rayon, so I was given this fabric for free. And I made the size 2 in this one, which is the same size that I had made previously, and I didn't alter the shape of the bodice or anything, I just added the ruffle at the bottom. This was the very first make that I did on my new serger, and so I did get out my new gathering foot, and I tried it out for the first time. I was not brave enough to gather and attach the ruffle at the same time, so I did them in 2 different steps. I need to play around with my settings because although I was able to successfully gather the ruffle, it's not very ruffly, and so I think I need to play around with my tension settings so that I can get more of an intense ruffle. But this turned out fine. Now, as far as the styling goes for this one, I don't really like this one either. I think I just don't like the drop waist silhouette. I kind of knew that maybe I wasn't gonna like it because I am naturally longer in the torso and shorter in the legs. So a drop waist dress is only gonna emphasize that, and I feel like it makes me look even shorter. It's also just really, really loose and billowy, which is what I wanted because it's a swim cover up, but I don't think that it's the most attractive silhouette on me. So again, I think this one's perfectly fine in terms of wearing it to the beach as a swim cover-up, but it's not something that I want to wear on its own as a dress. It's not quite what I was really looking for, so I am still technically seeking out my perfect swim cover-up, but I do have these 2 on hand that are perfectly adequate if I went to use them. So the last beachy thing that I made was actually for a gift. My niece is turning 11 in the month of August, and this was actually part of my August plans. So you might be asking yourself why you're seeing it in my July makes, and that is because I always film a couple of weeks in advance just to give myself a little bit of a cushion in case things happen. So that's why I made this actually in July, even though it was part of my August plans. And I made the Waves and Wild Sand Castle bucket hat out of a quilting cotton. This is a fabric that I actually made a top for my niece when she was just a little girl, and she really loved that top, and I had just enough fabric left to make this hat. The inside is another quilting cotton that is just a solid pink, and I do really like that this is reversible. I made this size adult small because although my niece is 11, I was worried about, growing, etc. But actually, I'll try this on for you. When I put the hat on myself, it's actually way too big for me, and so I had my husband try it on, and it actually fits him. So I would say that I feel like this pattern runs big. If I were to do it over again, I would definitely make her the next size down from this. And actually, if I made it for me, I would also make the next size down. So just be warned if you make this pattern, I do think it runs a little bit big. It was very simple and straightforward to construct. I really like that the brim is a little bit wider than a lot of other bucket hats that I've seen. I think it will provide nice sun coverage. So I hope that she likes this hat, and if she does, then I'd be happy to make more for her in the future. And I actually have a few requests from other family members to make some as well. Moving on to bottoms. So I made 2 pairs of Green Style Creations stride shorts. I only have the one here because the other one's in the wash. I did talk about this extensively in a Friday Sews video, so I will link that down in the description box. The fabrics that I used were from Surge Fabrics, and then this contrast was from Spoonflower. And the only thing I really have to add about these is that I've been wearing them regularly since I made them, and I'm really happy with the way that they fit, apart from that the waistband is a little bit too high, which I did talk about in my other video. I really like the style of these and like the shape of them. I just think that it's a really attractive, ready-to-wear looking pair of bike shorts. So I definitely want to revisit this pattern again in the future. I think it's a fun way to mix different fabrics and color block. So I definitely want to make more of these in the leggings in the future. Next up, we have my Paper Cut Patterns Tula shorts. I did a full review of this, so I won't go into a lot of detail. This is the size 2, and I made it out of a remnant piece of Brussels washer linen that I had in my stash. I've actually been wearing these on constant rotation since I finished them. I think they're my new favorite shorts. They're super comfortable, and this dark navy goes with pretty much everything, and I definitely want to make more of these in the future. I think that they're really ideal for a pair of simple elastic waist shorts. The last category I have to share with you are dresses. I made the Vicky Sews Milana dress. This is another Brussels washer linen that I got from fabric.com. I do have a full review of this. This was my collaboration with Renata of the Twilight Stitcher. This dress is fully lined with a cotton voile, I think. And one thing I noticed about this particular dress is that I know that like the backless dresses and the cutouts are like super in style right now, and I like them, but how do you hang them up? Because it's really, really hard to get them to stay on a hanger and not fall off. You know that ready-to-wear thing where you see a lot where they put like little like strings on it that you like put it on the hanger that way? I always hated those, and anytime I bought something that had those, I always cut them off like immediately. So that's not really an option for me. But yeah, it's a little bit difficult to get this to stay on a hanger. But anyway, apart from that, I think that the dress is really lovely. I wore it for a date night and it was wonderful. I do think that it'll transition well into the fall because of the color. I can wear it with boots. I'm picturing myself wearing a nice big felt hat, and I really love this dress. So the last dress I have to share with you is the one that I am wearing. This is the pattern Emporium Every Day is a Weekend dress. So I had bought this art gallery cotton spandex jersey from Morex Fabrics as part of my birthday haul, and I loved it so much that I wanted to sew it up right away. I really like this particular print because I think although it is wonderful for the summer, that it will transition really well into the fall as well. So this pattern comes with many different options. I made the size 6 and I chose did I choose the cap sleeve or the short sleeve? I think it's the short sleeve. And then I did the V-neck, and then I did want to do the midi length, but I actually did not have enough fabric. So pay attention to the fabric requirements on the Pattern Emporium website for this pattern because they are actually accurate. I believe for my size, it said that I needed 2 1/8 yards in order to be able to make the midi dress, and I only bought 2 yards thinking, I'm sure I can finagle it. No, you actually need the 2 1/8 yards. So I didn't have quite enough fabric to cut out the skirt pieces, so I ended up kind of playing around with the different lengths in order to fit onto the fabric that I had available, and ultimately I think that the length is fine on me. But yeah, I definitely think that if you are concerned about that, pay attention to the fabric requirements because usually I can kind of squeeze things out of less fabric, but in this case I could not. Initially, I was a little bit unsure about this style of dress because it is very loose and swingy. It's not meant to be fitted at the waist. But actually, I have found it to be so incredibly comfortable. Basically, anytime that I pull it out of the wash, I just want to put it on again. It does have pockets, and it's so very comfortable that I definitely want to make a fall version with the longer, like balloony sleeves. I think that would be really nice with tights and boots. The other thing about this dress that I just wanted to note is that I was initially thinking like, well, I don't need to buy this pattern because I could, use a t-shirt pattern that I already have and then hack something similar. And I think you could do that, but I will say that this dress has a lot of thoughtful and nice details. So for example, the skirt pieces are not just rectangles, they are actually A-line shaped. So it gives you a nice bit of gathering for the dress, but it's not too much so it doesn't like poof out at the waist like a lot of gathered waist dresses do. So I do think that the designer put a lot of thought into the pattern and the details, and I just wanted to point that out in case, like me, you don't really enjoy pattern hacking. I do think that this dress is actually worth it because all those little details have not been overlooked like they were in some other patterns that I already talked about. So that is the entire roundup of everything that I've made in July. I hope that you have enjoyed this video, and if you've gotten some value out of it, I would really appreciate it if you would give me a thumbs up because it helps YouTube send my video out to more viewers. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next time.